Welcome to Tehran's Palestine Square. Here in Iran, the polls remain open tonight for an extra 3 hours, as the authorities claim there were many queues to vote, although we've seen no evidence of such numbers here in Tehran. The poll has been deeply affected by the decision by the ruling authorities to reject thousands of candidates, mainly moderates and reformers. I've been out and about here in the capital today. Here's what I found. The Ershad Mosque in uptown Tehran, a stark contrast from the presidential election here in 2017. Then it was awash with voters, queues down the road. Today, space enough indeed for one man to declare that he no longer saw the point in voting.
رای ندی به ضرر ایران به سود اون بی همه چیه که تو آمریکا خب چشت واکن به کی رای میدی؟
من اصلا 41 سال رای دادم.
اشتباه کردی به یک کسایی رای دادی که برات کاری انجام نمیدن.
تو چقدر الان رای دادیم برای ما چیکار کردن اینا؟
شما اشتباه کردی به یک کسایی رای دادی که به ضررت کار کردن.
الان 41 سال ما اشتباه کردیم رای دادیم.
Successive elections here have swung between hardline conservative and moderate and reformist politicians, but this time many of those reformist and moderate candidates have simply been excluded. And that's why there is such frustration and forecasts of a seriously low turnout. Yet I found a prominent academic who believes true democracy in Iran is on its way.
Our road at the moment is toward democracy now. I am a revolutionary guy, and I love Islamic revolution.
Professor Saeed Leilaz worked for the reformist President Khatami as an economic advisor and was imprisoned by hardline President Ahmadinejad. He says it's the burgeoning middle classes who will bring about democracy. So there's Mr. Khatami coming to see you.
Yes.
Almost immediately as you came out of prison.
Immediately,
Fantastic.
Yes. We are much more progressive than those days. 60 to 70% of Iranians lived in villages, and now more than 80% or around 80% are living in urban areas. If you want to have political power, you should move to the city. Mm-hmm. And we did it through revolution, Islamic revolution.
I'd expected pessimism from this ex-political prisoner. Instead, there was this optimism. I put it to him, surely the low turnout proves politics here is dead.
Never politics dead, never. Because if you vote, you are doing politics. If you don't vote, you are doing politics.
At another mosque polling station, outside the mosque itself, there is what Iranians call a martyr's graveyard. Here are buried fallen soldiers from the Iran-Iraq war to the present day. This man fought in Syria, where Iran had been crucial in propping up Assad in his ruthless campaign to stay in power. He was proud of participating in the election and proud too of fighting for his country in what he believes is a war to defend Iran too from the threat of ISIS.
ما ایرانی‌ها یه غیرتی داریم که شاید مملکتمون خیلی مشکل داشته باشیم از لحاظ اقتصادی که اونم به هر حال به خاطر این تحریم‌های آمریکا هستش و یه سری مسائل دیگه، ولی ما هیچ وقت نمیتونیم اجازه بدیم افرادی بیان توی این مملکت و به ناموس ما بخوان دست درازی بکنن.
This parliamentary election is a prelude to the all-important presidential contest next year. Is the banning of moderate and reformist candidates in this election a taste of what's to come? At the same time, footage posted on social media appears to show a boycott by some groups of the election. Empty polling stations are seen throughout the country, including images from Ahvaz, Mashhad and Khorramabad, which in previous elections has been a particularly busy polling station. As he cast his vote this morning, the country's supreme leader declared that anyone who cares about Iran's national interests should participate in the election. Now, this afternoon, the Financial Action Task Force decided that Iran will be put on a blacklist for failing to tackle terrorism financing at home. This will extend international sanctions at a time when the country had already hoped for business with Europe to help its struggling economy. the outgoing parliament had voted to comply with the international regulations, but its decision was overruled by the Supreme Council. And now to discuss all this, I'm joined by Professor Sadegh Zeba-Kalam, a professor of political science at the University of Tehran. Professor, was it sensible of the ruling council to overrule Parliament's decision actually to accept the international rules on financing terrorism? After all, this is going to trigger sanctions.
Yes, but I think that this is the problem which would be for the upcoming Majlis, because regardless of the number of participants, the new Majlis would convene in about 3 months' time.
That's the new parliament.
The new parliament. And it would be confronted, the new parliament would be confronted with a huge task, because there are a lot of expectations of the new parliament. I believe that given the fact that many potential voters for reformists were absent, they didn't take part, they didn't bother to vote in today's election. So I believe that the hardliners would be in a commanding position in the new parliament.
But confronting terrible sanctions.
Exactly. On the one hand, they would be confronting Trump. On the other hand, they would be confronting the fact that because of the FATF sanctions, and there is a huge expectation by millions of Iranians who have been suffering during the past 6 years or so as a result of the United States sanctions against Iranian people. Life has become very difficult in Iran. So the new Majlis would be confronted with a monumental task.
Well, now, as you know, the polls are still open. They're open for 3 hours longer than they were going to be, because they say there are so many queues to get in to vote. But everything we've seen here in Tehran shows a very small turnout.
Well, to be more accurate, maybe the number of participants in large cities such as Tehran and other large cities be around 20% of the voters. But
the authorities wanted 50%.
No, but in small towns, and in rural districts, etc., the participation would be above 60%. So the aggregate would be around 50% for the whole country.
Briefly, what do you think the effect of this poll will be on the presidential elections next year? Does it mean there won't be any radicals or reformists?
Well, I believe that the next Iranian president, because of the fact that the Majlis would be dominated by the hardliners, would inevitably be a hardliner in about 16 months, 17 months from now. We are going to have a presidential election. I believe that maybe Mr. Ahmadinejad, maybe he would come out for as a candidate. Of course, the Guardian Council would tend to oppose him. But given the fact that the Majlis is dominated by the hardliners, it would be very difficult for the Guardian Council to disqualify Ahmadinejad or another hardliner.
Just briefly, I sense this place is feeling very depressed, perhaps more depressed than I've seen it in the 30, 40 years I've been coming here. Do you share that view?
I wouldn't call it, John, depressed, but I would call it very hopeless. The younger generation, what we call post-revolution generation, many of them have given hope for any meaningful changes.
Professor, thank you very, very much indeed.
You're welcome.
For joining us. That crucial question of turnout is likely to become clear during tonight, and results will start coming in tomorrow morning. But one more piece of news from here. Health authorities have confirmed tonight 2 more people in Iran have died from coronavirus. They were among 13 new cases of the virus, all linked with the holy city of Qom. A total of 5 people have now died.